I'm in Tokyo right now, and I'm waiting for a visa to China to be approved. And I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about just the overarching journey of what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how it's been going. And I think for me, the big thing about all of this is it's been a big example of the importance of surrender and trusting in yourself and trusting in the universe and trusting that those aren't actually separate things, right? Um, I grew my Instagram from 2,000 people to almost 30,000 people within 4 months. And I never wanted to be an influencer. I never wanted to be, some social media star. I really just wanted to be able to help people. I really just wanted to be able to be the other person, be the person in people's lives that I wish I had in my own. And my videos were always these 7-second short clips with lots of information in the caption for people to read, and it worked. But it didn't really feel fully authentic. I wanted to be able to bring myself into these kind of conversations and show myself and have people really get to know the real me. And that's difficult because I grew up hating myself. I grew up not liking the person that I was. I was a really, really cringy young kid and teenager. I was kind of that kid that had way too much energy, really struggled to fit in. I might have had a lot of friends, and I put that in quotation marks because they were friends, but they weren't the kind of people that invited me to places. I was never really invited to the birthday parties. I always struggled to, find somewhere to sit or find people to go to lunch with, and that went on for a really long time. And for those of you that don't know, I was born with the name Gregory. And in my culture, I'm Russian and Azerbaijani. In my culture, my name is Grigori or Grisha. And so Grisha became the very, very intentional identity that I wanted to create for myself. It was the culmination of all of my influences and the kind of man that I felt I had to be in order to get what I wanted, which was love and respect and affection and admiration and belonging and all of these things that we crave. And I did a good job. I became Grisha, I got tattoos and I went to the gym and I learned how to talk to girls and I learned how to become interesting, right? And I think for me, I reached a point where I am now, where I kind of have everything that I wanted, right? I'm traveling the world and I have 30,000 people following me on Instagram. And, I've never been more fulfilled, but I hit a wall where I haven't put out anything in months. I haven't even recorded myself, so to speak, because I have resistance towards recording in public and even what I want to share in the first place or what I want to say to people in the first place. And for me, I think what I realized was when I created Grisha, I also killed another part of myself, which was Gregory. And just to give you an idea of the kind of kid that Gregory was, there was a girl that I thought was super cute in middle school, like a little middle school crush. And I finally had convinced her to be boyfriend and girlfriend, this kind of little, as much as you can in middle school kind of thing. And we're sitting in gym class and she comes over to me and I'm sitting like crisscross applesauce. And I get so excited that she comes over to me that I jump up and I headbutt her directly in the gut. And I wind her, and all the air escapes from her, and she keels over onto the ground and starts crying. And I'm just looking around in horror, absolute horror. I mean, I just felt so bad, and it's a memory that I hadn't thought about in a long time. But when I did finally think about it, I realized that there was this part of me that I think in that moment and in the culmination of other moments, I was like, oh yeah, like, this kid has to die. Like, I cannot be this kid for the rest of my life. Because if I am, there's no way that he's going to be loved. There's no way he's going to be liked. There's no way that he's going to be accepted. And I think in those moments, I realized that I had to lock that kid away, right? And I did a great job, and I became Grisha, and Grisha would never do that. He would never headbutt his crush in the gut and cause her to fall over and start crying. And so the reason that I tell this story is because one of the major things that I talk about and preach is this concept of self-acceptance and authenticity, right? And so my Instagram and my email and my website, it's all, who is Grisha? Like, that's the question that I ask myself constantly and consistently, is who is this man, and what kind of brother is he? What kind of son? What kind of father do I want to be? What kind of partner? And I never stopped to ask myself, why is Grisha? Like, why did I create him in the first place, right? And it's because I was trying to create as much distance as possible from that other version of me as I could. And what happened when I did that is there's a part of me that became like a mass, right? Just like this frozen mass of cognitive consciousness, and there were so many things that I'm realizing now that made Gregory special. I used to love just running around and having fun, and I had so much energy and all of this stuff. And I think over time I convinced myself that type of energy was not something that could be loved, was not something that could be accepted. And so I stopped, right? I wanted to become the stoic Bruce Wayne. I work alone, like no emotions, and this level of seriousness took over my identity and my life. And I would go to parties, or I would go out, and I would just be standing in the corner of the room and observing and judging, and like you kind of get this like air of superiority where you're like, oh, I'm so much better than all of these people because look how serious I am, and look at these people making fools of themselves dancing. And it felt good at first, but then you start to realize that what you think makes you special actually keeps you disconnected from everybody else, right? As soon as you start to adopt this script of specialness or superiority, or you place yourself or you place others on a hierarchy below you, you immediately place yourself on a hierarchy where also people are above you, right? And so it was not sustainable, right? I never danced. I didn't even know what it was to dance. My first girlfriend in high school was Puerto Rican, and so dancing is such a large part of their culture. And so, like the small coros, which like little parties that I would get invited to here and there, there was everybody dancing, and I always felt so bad that I couldn't dance. I have no rhythm. I can't dance. And I felt so bad. And I know I would get made fun of, or I would get stares and stuff like that. And so I never attempted to dance. I was always locking that part of myself away and telling myself that, like, if I danced, I cannot be accepted, right? Which is, again, part of the narrative. And I would really say, like, only within the last year and a half have I really started to learn how to let go, right? How to not care, how to simply allow myself to just move, or allow music to move through me. And a big part of that is my work in core energetics. And there was this girl I met at Core Energetics, and it was like a little dance party, ecstatic dance, and I've never done it before. And she invited me to dance with her, which, like, to me was like unheard of, like I've never been asked to dance before. And it was the first time in my life that I really was just like, what the hell? Like, I'm just gonna dance. I'm just gonna let my body move, and I'm just gonna do whatever my body tells me to do. And I know there isn't necessarily like a clear point to the video I'm making, and I don't think that there has to be, right? I think a big part of why I'm making this, and it's the first time that I've been able to just talk, right? Normally I sit down and I have a script and I think about what I want to say and why I want to say it and what's the overarching theme. And the reality is that I just want to normalize the journey, right? Because I think a lot of the times what ends up happening is people see end results, and I believe that vulnerability is the crucible in which true bonds get formed. And I don't want to be a influencer. I just want to be a human being that at the very least influences other people to also be in touch with their humanity. And that involves me showing up in my fullest self, which includes Gregory, which was that kid that was, in my mind, undeserving of love and unworthy of being alive. And so I, cognitively, killed him in a way by locking him in this cage. And so a lot of my life right now is mostly centered around getting back in touch with that child and with that older version of myself, because there's a lot of wisdom in him, in how I live my life right now and why, right? Because it all comes back to him. It all comes back to, the wounding that he sustained and the pain that he went through and the rejection and his sense of belonging. Grisha gets all of those things, but Gregory never felt any of that. He still had to work for it. He still had to have people show it to him, and I had to beg my partners and my romantic partners to want to be with me. And so I think the most important thing that I'm learning right now is how to give that to myself, because it's easy to do that as Grisha, but for some reason, like I said, I have everything that I would have wanted. I have great friends, I'm traveling the world, I'm going on adventures and doing side missions, and yet for some reason there was this part of me that felt empty and like I was missing something. And I only recently realized that it's because there's still this part of me that never received that acceptance and that belonging, and that I would have to be the one that gives it to him. And so on a more practical sense of like what that looks like is I will literally just lay there and I'll close my eyes and I have this vision in my mind. So I have aphasia, whereas like I don't have a mind's eye, so I can't visualize things. So like normally if somebody says like picture a red apple, they see a red apple, I don't see anything. So I have to kind of, visualize it theoretically. But it's this kid that's sitting in a cage, right? And I put him in that cage and the door is open, but it's the illusion of freedom, right? It's the illusion of, yeah, like you can go out at any time. But he, of course, doesn't feel safe because me, the person that put him in there in the first place, has convinced him that it's not safe in this world for him, right? And it's nobody else's fault. It's not my ex's or my parents or anybody else. It may be a fault, but it's not their responsibility to now take care of him, right? It's my responsibility. And so I'll just sit with him. I'll just do the thing that nobody ever really did for him and that I never really did for him, which was just sit with him and listen and hear what he has to say. And sometimes that looks different. Some days he wants to punch a pillow, some days he wants to write, some days he just wants to cry, some days he laughs, some days he wants to dress up as Buzz Lightyear or Batman, or just really get in tune with what his needs are. And I'm finding that slowly there's this trickling effect of wholeness that comes into my life, where I'm recognizing that this part of myself that I had locked away for so long actually has this immense amount of wisdom in it. And so I spent so long trying to reject and get rid of this part of myself that, ironically enough, like in the story The Alchemist, that's actually the place that I need to go. And it's the place that needs the most acceptance and the most love in my life. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And that's really all I wanted to say. Have a great day.